Well, I appreciate you, as always, joining me to break down this story. This time we have a Christian summer camp in Colorado, and that camp is suing over this gender policy. Can you explain to us what is going on here?
Sure. IdRaHaJe, it's a Christian summer camp in Colorado. It's kind of an interesting name. It really is short for I'd rather have Jesus. It's an old hymn. But they serve about 3,000 campers each summer. It's a Christ-centered camp, but they welcome children of all faiths and backgrounds to camp each and every summer. But it does require campers and their parents to abide by the camp's Christian policies. The problem is the state has created these new regulations that attempt to force the camp to disregard its own faith and mission to be able to continue operating there in Colorado. According to the state, the camp is now required to change its policies on these sex-specific facilities. So, for example, boys would be allowed into the girls' private spaces, the shower, the dressing facilities, even sharing a room with boys is now possible if one were to comply with these new guidelines. The camp obviously cannot do that. It requested an exemption. That request was denied, and so we had to bring a lawsuit.
Yeah, this is important that we note this because the exemption was requested, and this is important. You said it was denied. Did they give a reason for the denial?
Well, the only thing the state pointed to was state law, and then they also told the camp director to go talk to a lawyer. So that's exactly what he did. So they didn't give much of a reason other than to say, you know, our hands are tied by state law, and, you know, you're welcome to go talk to a lawyer, and a federal lawsuit ensued.
So it's interesting because I know in a statement to CBS News, what the government essentially said was, and I'll read it here, the department will continue working in partnership with faith-based providers and camps within the confines of the law to ensure maximum participation. That obviously caught my eye because the confines of the law, that just goes back to this is what the law essentially says. And so we would have to follow that. I mean, break that down for me. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, no, you've got it right. It's sort of a circular reasoning. You know, in Colorado, they've attempted in several different spaces to inject this gender ideology into different parts of life. So, for example, we represent Darren Patterson Christian Academy. It's a K through 12 school, and they have like a pre-K program. The state of Colorado, is trying to force this same component, the ability for members of one sex to go into the opposite sex if they identify that way. And they have that as a requirement in order to participate in the state's pre-K program. We had to file a federal lawsuit there. That case is still being litigated, but the same principles, the same defendants, in fact, are involved in this lawsuit as well.
You know, it's interesting. You filed this lawsuit May 12th. You know, obviously, Alliance Defending Freedom, you're coming alongside this camp. What is the lawsuit seeking? I think we have a good understanding of that probably, but I want to just have you reiterate that. What are you seeking in the lawsuit? What are you hoping to see happen here?
Well, we want to see the regulation be enjoined so that this great Christian camp who's been around for 75 plus years can continue serving the kids there in the state of Colorado. It's not going to comply with these new gender ideology requirements, and so therefore we need to seek relief from the court.
You know, it's interesting when you look at a situation like this because you have a camp with a ton of children coming into it who have families. The vast majority of these people are going to be Christians, or they're going to be interested in Christian ideals, and they're going to have an issue with allowing, let's say, a biological boy in a, you know, girls' locker room or changing room or bedroom. Why again and again and again do we find ourselves, and you've looked at a lot of these cases, you've dealt with a lot of them, in a situation where this continues to happen, where a small group of people's interests seem to sort of trump the larger group, and particularly in this case, when it's a Christian camp looking to live out its Christian ideals?
Yeah, it's commonsensical, right? I mean, religious camps have the right to be religious. You know, Colorado can't force a private religious organization to adopt its extreme policies on gender and sexuality, but yet that's exactly what is being attempted here. I don't know who was behind the change in the language, but there were certainly enough to force it through and to actually have a change to these regs. Our camp director, while this was going through the rulemaking process, actually attended hearings and voiced objections to these changes, to the inclusion of this language, pointed out this problem, and again was told, well, state law, requires that we do this, and basically tough luck. And so it's unfortunate, but we've seen it in the state in more than one situation.
Yeah, it's really sort of troubling watching how some of this is unfolded based on what you know about Colorado. And I know this is always dangerous to ask, but and what you know about how the courts have responded to this, what do you think? How do you think this will be settled? Do you think you will have a victory on your side?
Well, it's really easy for the state right now. They could just simply, say yes to the camp, to this Christian camp, and to others perhaps that seek an exemption, and allow them to minister to the kids that they've been doing so for decades. Unfortunately, though, again, this is just the latest string in a long list of situations where the Colorado government has sought to force this sort of radical agenda into all aspects of the state. You consider Jack Phillips through creative several cases that have gone to the United States Supreme Court, and most recently we're representing a counselor in a censorship law that would force counselors there in the state to adopt the state's practice of pushing gender ideology on their clients. And so that case is actually going to the U.S. Supreme Court in the fall. But this isn't our first rodeo in Colorado. I wish it, our hope that it's our last. But if history is an indication, Colorado has not gotten the message yet.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably not your last, unfortunately, but based on the history here. And, Jack Phillips, yeah, I mean, that obviously being such a massive. And what's so crazy about these legal battles is they extend for years and years and years. I mean, at some point you would think there'd be an exhaustion on the part of the government, and yet there doesn't seem to be. Where can people go if they want to follow up? We're obviously going to continue covering this case, but if they want more details as this unfolds.
Sure, they can go to adflegal.org. And once there, you can click on in the search engine, you can just type in IdRaHaJe. It's spelled IdRaHaJe. And you can find all the details about the camp and the lawsuit at that location.
Well, I so appreciate you taking the time and breaking this all down for us today. I'm sure we will see you again very, very soon.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.